Hi, welcome to Behind the Storyteller, a Notified podcast. This is the series where we take professionals from the worlds of IR and PR, or the corporate storytellers, and we give them the mic to tell their stories. My name is Alan Murphy, and I'm in the studio here with my co-hosts Caroline Cullinan.
How's it going?
And Pat O'Rourke.
Hey, how are you?
And today, for our guest, or rather our character for the story we're going to tell today, we are joined virtually by Michelle Garrett. Michelle, welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I know some of our audience may be familiar with you already, because I believe you participated in webinars with Notified in the past. But for those who haven't caught those webinars, or maybe for those who need just a bit of a refresher, could you share a little bit about us, why you're here today?
Well, I have been working in PR and communications throughout my career, and I currently am a consultant for B2B clients, a public relations consultant, a writer. I have written a book, I'm a speaker, and I feel very strongly and passionately about what we do, and I am, watching all of the changes, just like everybody else probably is these days, so...
You're like the third guest that we've had who has written a book. And I always get so excited because selfishly, I'm a writer too. And I'm always curious about how that kind of fits within our respective careers. When was this book published?
April of 2024.
Oh, so this is brand new then. I mean, relatively speaking.
It's pretty new. Yeah. You'll see it on the wall there. So I try to make sure, because I don't want to say shy, but I'm reluctant to plug it too much, but it is always there over my shoulder. So
Oh, I'll insist. Please plug it. I would love for the audience to hear the name of your book. This is a great opportunity. And in fact, I myself would love to hear a bit more about it.
yeah, it's called B2B PR that gets results, and it's based on, all of my years of experience working with clients in the B2B space, because I feel like a lot of times, again, and this is not to take anything away from B2C PR. However, I think B2B PR is a little bit different in that we focus a lot on trade publications, and that's where, our clients' audiences are often spending time. And I feel like it just gets neglected a little bit or overlooked. So I wanted to talk about everything that I have learned and know from experience, and just share that with those, I have a few, people that follow me, and it was the next natural step for me, I felt, as far as what I wanted to do professionally. So
It sounds like the kind of book that I bet you would have loved to have had a book like that earlier in your career, to be able to learn from other people's experience within the B2B space.
yes, because I think I didn't even really understand what the difference was. And I still think there are people that may not really understand or even know that there is a difference. And honestly, some of the same principles would apply to both. However, again, I feel like with B2B, of course, we're focused more on companies as the buyers. Yes, there are individuals within the companies doing the buying, but it is different. The cycles are longer, the budgets are larger, and it just takes, it's not like launching a product and okay, we're going to get it in these publications and then we're not going to have another product to launch for a year. It's thought leadership, it's customer stories. It's kind of an ongoing effort to stay out there, because as the cycles are longer, you never know when buyers might be searching or looking or collecting information, and they do so much of their own research now that they really need you to stay out there. It can't just be, oh, well, we've got a product to launch and then we're going to go away for a year. It's got to be an ongoing, consistent effort.
Yeah, yeah. And I know we've got plenty more that we want to talk about today, but just like to get a little bit more background on you, because the three of us are here in the podcast studio in Chicago. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, okay. So you're a Midwesterner like us here in Chicago.
Yes, I'm a native Ohioan, native Midwestern. I did live in the Bay Area for about 7 years, and so I worked with a lot of tech companies and startups when I was out there. Launched my consulting business when I was out in the Bay. So,
well, next time you're gonna have to either go pick her up on the way to the studio,
yes,
or we need to go send a plane and get her into the studio with us.
We would love that.
I keep angling for the Notified podcast budget to increase, so we can start bringing some more guests here to Chicago.
Well, the way that we structure this podcast is we look at this episode as like a story in and of itself, where we spend the first part getting to know you, our character. But any story doesn't just have a character. It has a character that's faced with some sort of a conflict. And so I think this might be a good opportunity for us to kind of dive into some sort of conflict or struggle or something that you've faced within your career. That we can deep dive a little bit, understand, what the conflict was, what was at stake, what needed to be resolved, and then we can have some takeaways for the audience. So, Michelle, with that in mind, what sort of conflict do you think our listeners or viewers would be able to learn from today?
Well, for me, one of the conflicts that I have faced, and I think kind of continues to be an issue, is I think media relations, because I think it gets it gets a lot of negative, I don't know, people don't feel positively about it. Let's put it that way. And I think that by kind of leaning into that for my clients, that has helped me a lot with my own career. And then also, I think it's a benefit for clients too, because often, and I worked in an agency before I went out on my own, and I saw this firsthand. And again, it's nothing, not all agencies are the same, but often media relations is kind of given to the lowest, person on the totem pole. It's not given the attention that it should be. I noticed at a point, probably, I'm going to say 10 or so years ago, that there were other consultants, PR consultants, who leaned away from doing media relations. And I thought, now, wait a minute. This is what clients want. They want to be seen in publications. And of course, now we have podcasts, we have newsletters, there's all, kinds of, media for them to be featured in. But this is really what they want. So if you are just providing strategy without the execution, that to me can be an issue.
I'm curious if you have any theories as to why you think media relations is, in some cases, a bit of an afterthought, maybe for PR professionals, or maybe not taken as seriously as, at least in your opinion, it should be taken.
I think my honest answer would be people don't like to do it.
Okay. I get that. Okay.
And, that I get that, but, it's a very important piece, and it's not, obviously you need the strategy and you need the writing, you need foundational skills to get to that point, to be ready to do that. However, again, I feel like it's not something that, somebody who's very junior, just starting out, that might not be the right role for them to be playing when they work on a client account.
Yeah, if that's a responsibility that's just handed to the person kind of lowest on the totem pole within the department or something like that, unless they have like a passion for it or some sort of experience in it, I feel like it's a little risky to just throw that off onto someone else who may not have the necessary experience to handle that appropriately.
Yeah, and I continue to see that, and so I think for me, when I noticed this happening, what I'm going to say again, around probably 10, 12, 15 years ago, as a consultant, I was like, wow, okay. Because I have a journalism degree, writing is my first love. I really at one point wanted to lean more into the writing side. And I'm really glad that I didn't do that, although I still do a fair amount of writing for clients. I focused on that media relations piece, and that not only helped me land clients of my own, but then I could also work with the consultants who were kind of shying away from the media relations piece. So I think for me, it's been a really important piece of what I offer to clients. And I still continue to get a high from helping them be seen. And it does actually make a difference for them. And we see it now, of course, with search, but also AI-driven search. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, as you were saying that, like AI even came to mind, because with your experience over the years within this industry, I'm sure you've seen media relations evolve so much over the last 15, 20 years or so. as social media became more and more on the rise, and now with AI just growing exponentially and being such an important way that people get information out there and learn. How have you seen the advent of AI and its popularity affect your role or the role for people within media relations?
Well, I feel like it's kind of benefiting us in a way because I feel like a lot of times PR in general can be kind of an afterthought for companies. And it's like, well, if we have the budget, we might do it, or we have a product launch, we might do it. But now I feel like, again, it's kind of underscored the importance of just having an ongoing, consistent PR effort going, all the time, because that is how you show up in AI driven search. And again, I know that some people don't think SEO is important anymore. I still think SEO is important. I do feel like we're kind of getting away from maybe from the link building and what some people call digital PR, and I've never really embraced that term. I don't really I feel like we do so much more than just, earn clients links. So I feel like that is there's a lot of change happening. So
More and more with clients that I've spoken with, and even with guests on this podcast, they've really been highlighting the importance of even if you don't necessarily use AI yourself on your day to day, at least recognizing the
right.
importance that so many out there. Millions of people out there are using it on the day to day, and it is such an important way that they're getting their information now, whether we like it or not, regardless of your opinions on AI. And so responding to that and being mindful of that fact and being strategic in the way that you get your information out there is becoming more and more important, kind of paralleling what we saw with SEO. It's just sort of the next evolution of that.
Yes, and it's changing, and I see a lot of people trying to say, well, you need to just throw out your entire PR playbook and do it this way. I don't know if we really can say that, because a lot of what we've always done, kind of the fundamentals of PR, are important for both SEO and I'm going to call it GEO, although AEO,
Yeah.
EIEIO, whatever you want to call it. I know it's different depending on which expert. And I mean, there are some people in the space that I think are very, I would call them trusted experts that they don't even know what to call it always. So it changes all the time. But I think it's just something that we need to follow as PR pros. And of course, we just need to stay on top of it by following sources, following companies in the space, following experts and blogs, and just keeping an eye on what's going on, because we need to be able to talk about this with our clients. A lot of clients, I find, are not super, concerned about it or bringing it up a lot. I still feel like I need to know and understand so that at least I can have that knowledge and that confidence that I know what's going on and how best to serve them. So
That also helps you kind of pivot as you need to as the world evolves around you, because like you said, I agree with you. I don't think that people should abandon their entire PR playbook in
right.
response to AI being on the rise. I think it's smart to know how and when to pivot and evolve your playbook. But I think throwing all your eggs in that one basket is potentially a bit premature at this point. I mean, AI and language models like this have really only been around for a handful of years now. And if you were to completely abandon your old PR playbook and go straight into this, for all you know, that's going to completely change again within the next 2 or 3 years, in which case you're going to have to rebuild your entire playbook all from scratch once more. And nobody wants to do that.
No, but I think some people do, advise that because it helps them sell and make money off,
Yeah.
from advising clients to do
No,
that. So
for sure.
again, just be careful. I mean, and I don't want to make any blanket statements, because obviously every situation is different, and every agency, every consultant, every business. So, but I just would say be careful about that, because it is going to continue to change. I think focusing on the fundamentals is a lot of people just chase the shiny object and they forget about the fundamentals, and those are always going to matter. So I don't think that there's ever going to be a time when we're going to see, the importance of um, media relations and staying out there and figuring out, who your subject matter experts are, and putting them in the spotlight. And like, I don't think there's ever going to be a time when that isn't going to help us make progress and be important. So.
Yeah.
It all feels supplemental rather than just being to your point, some people are just like, okay, let's just do this to try to say, okay, well, let's make some more money. Let's, here's the new thing. I'm going to sell this to you, or I'm going to sell you how to do this. But
Right.
if you are using it as a supplement, if you're using your fundamentals, if you're doing the things that you normally do, you are helping to shape your narrative no matter what, whether it is the traditional sense of your brand identity or a GEO, AEO, kind of what are these LLMs saying about your brand. If you
Right.
are doing all of the fundamentals, you're putting out a press release, you're getting these stories written about you, you're putting these trusted experts out speaking about your organization, that's all going to let you shape what your narrative is, what ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, what it's spitting back out when people are asking about it. So to that point, like if you only go from one angle, you're missing out on all of those other pieces. So you're 100% right, in my opinion. And I'll send you the receipt from the money you sent me earlier. But it really comes down to it being a supplement, and it's like riding a bike. It's what we always say. It's if your foundation is strong, you're always going to be able to succeed. Same thing goes with media relations, public relations, any type of communications and storytelling. If you are building off of this base of proven effective tools, no matter what it is, whether this AI event eventually goes into something else or goes into something else, as the advent of the internet, as social media, all of these things have happened already, and everything has had to evolve and change and grow. But those fundamentals are still the fundamentals. Those are still the things that make the most sense and get you through the growth of all of these different aspects of what your job is now.
We had another guest at one time, and I am going to paraphrase, potentially butcher what she said. But she was saying, regardless of how the tools like AI and stuff, everything evolves, at the end of the day, you're still marketing toward people, and it's still people behind those tools that you need to keep in mind. So like you were saying, having those fundamentals in mind with your PR strategy is still one of the most important things. And then just evolving with the tools and with the landscape is the way to move forward, rather than to fight the way that the market is evolving.
Yeah, if you can market to people, you can market to computers who these people are behind and getting their information from. So you are now still marketing to people at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I would add even further with, just staying out there in front of your audiences and talking, speaking in your own voice, writing in your own voice, staying out there is important, because now we see, of course, AI generated, fakes, videos, images. They could take your CEO and try to, so it's really important for your audience to trust you, and to trust you, they need to see you and hear from you. So I would say PR is just going to be experiencing a bit of a renaissance in a way, because I feel like, obviously I know it's important, but I hope that companies are really going to understand how and why it really matters for them to continually be focusing on that.
Yeah, and you said making sure to continue to write and speak within your own voice. So many people are, just punching in a prompt to, an AI model and then just copying and pasting exactly what it says, but it loses that voice. And that when you lose that voice, in a lot of ways, you can lose that sense of authenticity. And more people are getting savvy to that too, where they can frequently tell if something was made solely by ChatGPT, or if it was actually your thoughts and your emotions and your knowledge coming through onto the page. I feel like more and more people are becoming wise to that the more they see from it.
Thank goodness. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like if we're giving up our writing and we're giving up our thinking, I mean, writing to me equals thinking. And so it's just, I mean, I don't even know sometimes how to organize what I think until I sit down and just get it all on the page, and then I can think through it, organize it, and come out with something, a written piece. But then also I can speak more clearly about whatever it is I just wrote about, because it helped me kind of weed through everything that I was, hearing and reading and, so it's critical thinking. And man, I don't know. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that's more important than it's ever been
Oh,
in, the history of time. Like, so we
Absolutely.
can't give
preach.
that up.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that one.
I will, because to your point, I didn't even think about, when you were talking about having your brand staying, kind of front and center. I didn't even think about like deep fake videos for a CEO or things being, created to damage a brand. I don't think we've really seen that as a thing so much yet, but with all of this, like with the AI videos that are getting put out and shared with lots of different situations, it's kind of crazy to see what's being done. And then that leads into, we've had conversations with other guests about like crisis communications that leads right into that. But if you are, exactly to your point, if you are continually keeping your brand, your authenticity, your values, your story front and center, when things like that happen, you have much more of a defense. You have champions that are like, that's not what they do. That's not what this person would say. This is, and there is a more of a pushback where if you don't put yourself and your brand at front and center, something like that happens. Who's going to know? Who's going to know whether or not that's actually accurate? And you're more likely to have people push back and say, no, I don't know what this person normally says or what they feel or think. And you're going to be in a much harder position to say, oh no, this is fake. This is fake. And people aren't going to believe you in that respect. So keeping yourself forward and being authentic really does make a lot of sense. And I'm sure makes your job a little bit easier when it comes down to it. But hopefully more brands understand that and realize that before we end up with a situation that happens like that.
I hope so.
And Michelle, I want to kind of take it back just for a moment when you were talking about the importance of media relations and how for a lot of organizations, they may not prioritize that as much as they really should. If and when you do come across an organization where they do have that mindset, do you find there to be some resistance to adopt that and put some more effort, so to speak, into it? And if so, how do you handle that when consulting?
Well, usually when clients come to me, that is probably the number one thing they're looking for, along with content, right? So
Oh,
I
they're
feel
already
like
looking for it by the time they're speaking with you?
probably, I mean, I have been in situations where I'm probably doing more writing of the content than pitching of the content. And in that case, I would have that conversation and let them know that, yes, okay, so we have this, content ready for your site, for LinkedIn, whatever it is, wherever they want to self-publish the content. So I'm talking about owned content. Then I would say, well, there's more we can do with this, right? We can try on the earned media side. We can pitch it as a contributed article, or we could turn it into a series of posts for social media, or, there are different options that we can different things we can do with it, right? So we don't want to just develop the content, publish it on their site, and it sits there and maybe people see it, maybe they don't. I mean, I'm sure there are stats about that, and I'm sure I probably cited someone to talk somewhere about how many people don't see your content once it's just on your site. Like, what else are you going to do with it? So, I feel like that's a conversation I have had with clients, and sometimes they're receptive, but sometimes they're very focused on, one particular area that they want to, work with me on. And all you can do is try to have those conversations. Some clients don't have a crisis plan. Back to that for a moment. Just like that's something else that I've mentioned, and they will almost look at you like, what? Like, why would we need that? So it's just something. I think once you develop the trust with the client, they're more likely than to maybe listen to you and perhaps look to you for uh, other services.
And I like what you were saying too about having a good piece of content and thinking, okay, yes, we could put it here and just hope that people get, find it and read it. But if it's great content, it's ripe with opportunity to go out to such a wide range of channels and audiences, and having a very proactive approach toward that when you have great content, I think is a really a widely missed opportunity for people who aren't taking media relations as seriously as maybe they should.
I think people just don't understand what it is PR is and what PR pros do
Mm.
sometimes. I feel like there's some mystique around it sometimes. It's like, well, it's not paid, it's not advertising, right? But so what is, because I use the term earned media a lot, and I should never assume that people know what that is because I was on a call with a prospective client and she said, "Well, what do you mean when you say earned media?" So then, I mean, in my head, I'm seeing, the peso model. I don't, by,
Yeah.
of course, by Spen Sachs, Jenny Dietrich,
She was a guest
paid,
of ours,
earned.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I really appreciate, and I use that model. Of course, it's you giving proper credit as credit is due for that. But I use that in talks because in my head I'm seeing when I talk to clients, paid, earned, shared, owned. I usually look at it as owned, earned, and then we look at shared as social, and then perhaps paid. I don't do as much on the paid side with clients, admittedly, but I do think that is a robust strategy. And I think Jenny and I have had that conversation that kind of focus on the owned first and then kind of move to earn. But it's not a perfect world with a lot of clients. So I mean, you do what you can. And my favorite clients are the ones that trust me and allow me to maybe educate them a little bit. Or maybe they already, understand and that's why we're working together because they know that I'm focused on those things, and that's what they need and want. So,
Yeah, building and earning that trust with your clients so that they will listen to your insights and respect the experience that you're bringing to the table there. That has to be such an important part of what you do because without that, it might just go in one ear and out the other entirely, in which case that was just a waste of everybody's time.
Would you have any advice for someone who maybe has been put in that position where they don't really know how to pitch journalists, or maybe they're sending out a lot of pitches that look the same? Would you have any advice on how to pitch media relations and how to get your clients work in front of those journalists?
I do have advice, and I
I
did.
figured.
I will share some of it. I did write about it in the book as well because the thing about this is, I feel like sometimes, and I think when I was starting out, and so I identify sometimes with newer, younger PR pros, and sometimes I talk to students in PR. They interview me for their class, and I understand that they don't have the confidence maybe to push back on ideas like, well, let's just see how many pitches we can send out this month. Something's bound to land, right? So we're just going to spam out thousands of pitches randomly to these journalists. Who knows what publications they write for, what they write about. Instead of doing that, though, what I have learned and found is that if you focus in, you don't need thousands of journalists on your list. You probably really need, I'm going to speak on the B2B side, a focused list of 20 or 25 maybe. And you really focus in on those folks, right? So you have to do the research to find out where the prospects are spending time, where's the audience spending time. Then you build the list. Then you figure out the best person, at the publication and then at the media outlet. And then, you really focus on tailored pitches, not the same pitch for everybody on the list all the time. Now, sometimes if you have an announcement, you brought in a new CEO, you've got a new product to launch or whatever, you might end up sending the same, a similar pitch to those people. But otherwise, in between those times, you're going to be looking for ideas that are going to appeal to that particular editor or reporter. And what do they write about? What does their audience care about?
And really tailoring those pitches and making them personalized to those to whom you're pitching is so important for maintaining that relationship in the long term as well. Not just for the intents and purposes of that story that you're putting out there, but knowing that there's going to be more stories in the future and knowing that there's going to be future announcements and that you really want this person to write about it. Giving it that tailored, personalized touch has got to be so important for maintaining that relationship in the long term.
It really is. And what I have found, and again, it's obviously, I love to work with clients over a period of time, right? So no more, I don't work with a lot of one-offs anymore because I want a client to give me, I don't demand that they stay with me for a certain amount of time, but the more time we spend together, the more results that they are probably going to see, and the more I'm going to understand because I do ghostwrite for the executives, so I'm going to understand their voice, I'm going to understand their messages. And what I have seen too is that with relationships with the editors, they will come to me asking for a spokesperson, a thought leader from a client, because they know that that person has been a good source for them in the past. And so instead of even having to pitch them, they proactively come to us because they know, they're going to be able to supply a customer reference that we can talk to for this story, or they're going to be able to give us a subject matter expert that has 15 minutes to answer a few questions so we can add their comments to this piece. So that's really, to me, that is truly success.
That's the dream. Yeah.
Yeah. Our local, and I think actually a couple of different PRSA chapters have done it, but I went to the Chicago PRSA Meet the Media event. And one of the biggest things that was really kind of eye-opening for me, one of my biggest takeaways from it was build a relationship with those reporters that you are reaching out to. Don't just look at it as a business transaction where it's just, I'm pitching you a story, I'm pitching you a story, I'm pitching you a story, because they're people too. So when you have that, you build that relationship, you do those kind of reach outs where it's just, hey, just, kind of doing a check-in, see if you need anything, whatever. You build those relationships. So exactly to your point, they know that, okay, we can go to this person, or we can go to these, we can reach out if we need something, and it becomes a mutual relationship instead of a one-sided I just need something from you. Like I'm just going to take and take. And I think that was an eye opener for me. And, and I'm obviously I'm not reaching out to, my job is not doing that per se, but it helps me to speak to people in this realm that are, PR professionals, and be able to kind of give these nuggets of advice. And it makes sense with everything that you're saying right now.
Yeah, they trust you. So it's not just a transactional, type of relationship. They act, and there are reporters that you get to know. I mean, even, like you know a little bit about them personally. I'm not saying you should ever stalk reporters. I don't like that. Yeah, don't do that. But it's fine to exchange, pleasantries, or, like if they have pets or kids or where they went to school, or I think that's fine over time if you get to know them a little bit, because, again, yes, I think people are going to, prefer always to work with those that they know, like, and trust. And I don't think it's any different between a PR professional and a reporter. So,
right.
I have one other really important question that we did not get to earlier. You mentioned the book, but where can you buy the book? Like, is it on your website, local bookstore? I want to make sure.
Amazon.
Okay. Right.
It was a bestseller in the PR category on Amazon when it came out. And you can get it bookshop.org, Barnes and Noble. It's available online, anywhere you would buy books.
Fantastic. I mean, I listen. I'm always about putting out the product link and getting a little ding.
Oh yeah, you said you didn't want to plug your book. We will happily do it for you. We got no problem with that.
Yay!
We're in sales. That's what it's all about. That's what this is about.
I know there's so much more that people can learn from the book, and they should check it out. But for the intents and purposes of this podcast, with people having listened to this conversation, to kind of nicely put a bow on everything, if there was one idea that you would like the listeners to walk away with, some sort of lesson or takeaway that you think would be helpful for people within this world, what would you like the listeners to walk away with today?
Well, I would say make sure that you work with people that know how to get you where you want to go. And that is not always using, an AI tool to do everything, right? Don't forget that talent, human talent, is really important to what we do. And again, back to the relationships, those matter as well. I'm not saying you should base everything on those, but I do think the ability to build a relationship, to understand how reporters like to work. They're on deadlines. Yes, they want to look to sources that they trust. And so be that source, and they will come back to you. And that is the kind of relationship that will lead to the results that you're looking for.
I love that. Fantastic. Michelle, thank you so much for your time today. We would love to have you back sometime in the future for other episodes, but I really do just want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation and share a lot of the takeaways from your knowledge and your experience with our audiences. So once more, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, with that in mind, then we're going to wrap things up. So for all the listeners or the viewers at home, thank you for joining us today. And be sure to follow or subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and also check us out on LinkedIn, where we're going to be sharing clips from this episode and other episodes in the future. And thank you. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.